Awesome. Turn off my little phone. Wow, we have a pretty full house today for a Rev Up class. We have about 10 students, and that is amazing. What's up, Jeff? Thank you all for sharing your camera. Who's sharing your camera? If you're not sharing your camera, I know you're real, but I can't feel your face to know how it's going. So just FYI, I'm going to need you to participate if you have a question. Now, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't always see who wants to participate. Hey, Sarah, way to share your screen. So we just need to make sure that we raise our hand. Also, I usually get this class done, not in 2 hours, but about an hour and a half. So we are staying on track today to the listing. If you have other questions, just make sure that you meet up with me later, but let's stay focused on the listing contract today. Sound good? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen one, screen two. Sharing. So right in front of you, you see the MLS, right? Now, I hope you've all had time to have your own accounts in ARMLS, and you've at least logged into the Flex MLS page, which is in front of you today. Now, everybody will have different menu options up here. These are my starred options from the menu, so you can see where I put my stars. I always have my tax records listed at a bare minimum and the quick search. Everything else is kind of based on what you want to do, but those two items are your definite go-tos, especially when price pointing a home or doing a listing contract. So we're going to use my house today as an example, because I can share my house and not feel bad about it since I have my own ownership thing, you know. And just to let you know, congratulations, Realtors, you now have a stalking system called tax records that if someone owns their home, they don't have to tell you their address for you to show up at their house. It's called tax records. And that was a complete joke, but it is kind of creepy. I mean, if you think about it. So if you go into Monsoon, this is the very first thing you're going to do when you are creating a listing contract. You need to look up the information on the property. And Tom, I know you've been through this a few times, but you know, if you have questions along the way, definitely let us know. And hey, Lucinda, it's great to see your face and your beautiful white shutters. They are gorgeous. All right, and we're going to look up an address. So I'm going to just pull the address I currently live at. And the reason I have no issue doing this as a human being, like I told you, I am fully searchable. We're all fully searchable. Unless you have a trust, an LLC, or a fictitious name that your property is kept under, I will find you somehow. You know what I mean? So no secrets in real estate. So I put in the address. As you see, I didn't put in so much detail. I just put in the basic. And also, if you're not sure about avenue, drive, circle, lane, street, don't put in that part, just leave it off. It will pull up everything that matches what you put in. I could have also searched by the owner's name. That sometimes comes up with more results. And sometimes if you don't spell their name properly, it could come up with no results. But as I'm looking on my tax records, the key about this, and I know it's a review for some of you, but some of you need to just, you know, you don't know it yet. So we're just going to do a few things that are kind of basic. And it's what is on this sheet that's so important. The very first thing that's so important is the Maricopa Assessor parcel number. This is our book, map, and parcel. So imagine before computers, there were a bunch of books at the recorder's office and title companies, and they had to look up the actual parcel to find the property that was being sold. So this is how they referenced it. Kind of like we learned the library system. This is how title companies would find the plot of land. So we still use that today because it's a defining item that's just been computerized. It then tells me who the owner is. This is important. Why? Who do you want at the table when you're presenting?
Your client, the owner.
You want the decision makers. Thank you, Sarah. You definitely want the people that are able to say yes. And so if you see multiple people here and you've only planned to meet with one person, you need to ask more questions. If it's a trust, an LLC, a corp, you need to say, hey, I'm so excited to be meeting with you. Like, don't ever be negative, right? It's always yes and. I'm so excited to be meeting with you. I just want to make sure how many managing members in your LLC need to be present to actually execute an agreement. How many people does it take to sign to list a home? Someone unmute and tell me.
Depends on the owners. If there's two owners, then husband and wife. If it's only the husband, then it would just be the husband listed, right?
Cool. I like that thought process, Lucinda, and I love that you unmuted and shared that with us. Actually, it only takes one member, one owner to sign to take the listing. However, Lucinda, with that mindset, you'll always win because it takes all owners to go under contract. And so knowing that you need all, owners to sign a purchase contract, what's the point of only presenting to one person if the other one's not on board? You're just wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your money. So get them all on the same table. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, what we're going to see a lot of this next year and what we've been experiencing is a lot of estates. The children who have inherited because someone has passed away. Our numbers have been a little too high on that, in my opinion, based on, health of our society. And so sometimes what you will see is someone will call you, that's one of your friends, because this is usually how this one works, and says, hey, my mom or dad passed away. We need to sell their house. They have a will. And me and my siblings are splitting the house evenly. You need to remember, you can't just go list the house. They have to go through probate, even with a will. And the courts are the ones that give the executor listed in the will or assigns an executor the permissions they will need for title to pass a clear title. So just because someone has a will doesn't mean we're ready to list. Okay, so these are discussions that sometimes you don't have everybody at the table. Sometimes you need to Zoom other members in, and sometimes all you need is that executor because the other three siblings don't need to sign. It's only the executor that's going to decide on the purchase, and then how the courts dictate the proceeds is how title would disperse. So these are just little tidbits that I don't usually go over, but it's something that's coming up more and more in our office lately is who needs to sign. Try to get everybody. Just get the buy-in from the beginning. Your life will be much better. And can I list now? The other thing I've been hearing a lot of in the office lately is, well, the oldest child had power of attorney for the parent that has just passed. Power of attorney dies when the parent passes away. If the purpose of the power of attorney was to live past the person who gave that power of attorney power, they would actually have needed to do a beneficiary deed. So these are things that you should just know for your pocket of mind is a beneficiary deed. When someone is ill, if they're still in a good mental status, they can add one of their children or whoever their heir is to the deed of the house. So that way in their passing, it doesn't need to go through probate. It's not a fun topic to talk about, but it's a topic that comes up and a topic that definitely comes up with our listings, right? So we want to make sure that we know this knowledge so we don't lead someone astray or get ourselves in a situation where our seller cannot perform because they never had true ownership of the property. And then we have a specific performance situation. Everybody good? Sarah, what's up?
If there's a LLC, do you need all the managing LLC members to sign off, or how do you, what was the?
Yeah, LLCs are managing members. And so you always want to ask how many managing members, or do you have a president of the LLC? And you can take the listing, but before you ever advertise to go under contract, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go back and you get a copy of that LLC articles of incorporation and give that to the escrow company to verify who you need to sign on a contract.
Okay, thank you.
Because it's amazing how people forget that they added partners,
Question, Sarah, that was exactly my question, but then that led to another one. So to get the listing, I only need one managing partner under an LLC?
Yep.
Okay. Good.
But keep in mind, Lucinda, when we do that, if everybody's not on board, they could go list several times. I mean, if it only takes one and there's 5 managing members, well, what if they listed A, B, and C, and now they're owing 3 commissions if they're all exclusive right to sells instead of exclusive agencies. So I just wanted to prep you in the beginning. This property owner section is so important. What I will do for all of you, and for those who are not in the Paradise Valley Facebook group yet, please feel free to email me directly at mandy.neat@realty1group.com. But I'm going to actually post what is needed in the event is a corporation, LLC, trust, and how people sign. In 2018, I did an event and I listed it all out and I've always kept it. So I'll just post it for you.
If that information is public record, will you send a link for that too?
You know what? I don't know how to look them all up. I know it's all
Okay.
under the corporate commission, but that takes me time. So, you know.
Okay, that's fine. If you already had it, I was like, great.
I'm like, you're a good friend though, but that's why you have a good escrow officer. All right. So here on your screen, you have the owner. The property address matters. Knowing the subdivision matters for data entry. But then we're going to go down to what we need in order to fill out our listing agreement. You have two legal descriptions here. You have an abbreviated legal description and a full legal description. You want to use the, or abridged. I really don't know what ABBR stands for. I pretend it's abbreviated. And so you want to use the abbreviated legal description here because it has the lot number in it. If I Google Green Trails MCR 20349, which is listed here as well, that will bring up the whole subdivision of Green Trails. But the lot number says it's this house. And that's why the lot number is so important. So we're not going to list the home in one way to identify it. If you notice, we list it in three ways. We have our legal description, we have the address, and we have the parcel number. So these are all pretty essential. And thank you for having me look up my house. They messed up my mailing address for the tax. Okay, if you sometimes see a separate property address than tax mailing address, and I kind of saw Joe leaning in, so I'm going to just blow this up a little bit. Thank you for that. I need to know if the screen is too small. Then you have to think, do they live there? Even though it says owner occupied, if they have a different tax mailing address, do they live here? So I would ask Mandy, hey, I noticed that your property address and your tax mailing address don't really line up. Is it you that's occupying the property, or do you have tenants? Is it vacant? Like, what's up? You know, just asking more questions is always lovely. And in this case, they just messed up. That's my old mailing address. And these are things we never want to assume, but when you have a question and you're about to assume, ask more questions. So that is what we are going to use in order to fill out the listing agreement today. Now, what I will tell you is that Monsoon is fabulous. You always want to print this page for yourself. I know a lot of us are very techie and we're like, we want to save trees, don't use paper. Well, they already cut down the trees and we have paper. So the paper really will help you not make mistakes. Okay, so print it out, have it in front of you, use this as a guide. Because more than that, the tax records is also what you pull to pull price points. And today's not a price point class. However, it tells you about the property. It tells you who the owners are, how the deeds have conveyed over time. It tells you about the loan that was just taken out on the property. Sometimes in refinances or HELOCs, they're not listed here. So you want to ask questions, of course, about what they owe. It tells us about the subdivision. It tells us about tax. It tells us kind of like the trend of that neighborhood. And then most importantly, it tells us if it's in a flood zone. This property is not in a flood zone. It's 0.2% annual chance. So this is a minimal area. If you go back to the map, and I'm just bringing this up because what season are we in, y'all? You feel it. I feel it.
Monsoon.
Yeah, monsoon. Yeah.
Monsoon.
Yeah, don't forget, we have ice cream sandwiches being delivered at the office between 1 and 3. And I can go buy sugar-free options. Just got to let me know you're coming. All right. And so if I go here, I can, because I need sugar-free options too lately. If I go here to map options, I can say flood zone and I can say apply. And it will actually also show me the flood areas. So if my house was in the canal, I would be in trouble. Right? This would be a disclosure item. Now, in school, they said, be the source of the source and never the source. They also said, give reasonable skill and care and be competent geographically. So in my opinion, and I know my opinion has a higher expectation than many brokers, you must use the tools at your fingertips. And to me, the fact that we have this map as a tool of the trade means we should be looking at this. And if it comes up in a flood zone, we should be asking more questions. Because does flood insurance affect the final figures for a buyer?
Yes.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure we hit that up. Okay. So enough about that, right? You guys are like bored to tears. All right. Sky slope.
Hey, Mandy, sorry. Could I ask a quick question?
Uh-huh.
Regarding the last tax information, you know how it talks about like the how many rooms are in the property, but it just totals it up to like 6 or 8 rooms or something. And you don't
Yes.
know if it has 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. Like, is there a way to distinguish what are bedrooms, what are bathrooms?
No, so that's the bummer about tax records, Tom,
Okay.
is if this property has never been listed before and this is the first time they're selling it, you're
Right.
like Googling it like crazy to try to figure
Okay.
this stuff out. Before you get there, right? But
Yeah.
usually, most of our homes, unless they're custom, are pretty cookie cutter. So it's like 3 bedrooms and a den or 4 bedrooms. And remember, and thanks for bringing that up, Tom, but that is a price point discussion too. Bedrooms, there is no definition of a bedroom for ARMLS purposes for input. However, for value, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and USPAP, which is the rule set that appraisers follow, state a bedroom must be minimum of 90 square feet. It does not need a closet. Please get that idea out of your head. IKEA sells closets. They're real. They're on wheels. It does not need a closet. It needs a door to a hallway and a window that you can exit out of. Therefore, if a bedroom is in the basement without a window that can walk directly out, that does not count as a bedroom for value purposes. However, for marketing purposes, it may. Also, don't lie to the consumer, and I'll get right to you, Sarah. Don't lie to the consumer. When the room is just a hole in the wall in the living room, even though you can list it as a bedroom per MLS, because there's no rule set to it, it's another room, you have misguided the heck out of that buyer, and they just got really upset and they're not buying the house. Okay, so think about what you're doing and what you're putting out there. Sarah?
So I heard that it needs, and this might be what you're saying, ingress and egress. And so then I would wonder if it has 2 doors as opposed to a door and a window. Would that work?
No, it has to have a window and a door.
Okay.
And it's because some people try to list bedrooms that are in bedrooms. Have you guys ever been in a 1980 custom build in Waddell, Arizona? Those are called farmhouses on 2.5 acres. And they have like these long bedrooms, right? And it's one door from the hallway. And then there's a room in the room in the room. And those rooms aren't bedrooms because there's only one way into the hallway and there's no fire escape.
Got it.
But
Okay.
however, that's a good question for those who like replace their windows with doors, like people do that with patio doors and stuff. I would say we would need to take it on a one-on-one basis because you could argue it on some occasions.
And then when you were talking about flood at the very bottom, I wasn't sure how you saw if it was a flood zone or not. Like I saw that this one is 0.2%, right?
So I'm kind of very into, over the years getting to know these things, and you'll get to know them over the years. But this is a minimal flood chance. So if I click on the map, it'll take me directly to FEMA. And don't forget the map on top, I had an overlay. And when I go directly to FEMA, it will take me to the property. It will color code my area, and I will see that this is the minimal flood place, right? Because these ones, you might need flood insurance. This is common for all houses.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then if you really have flood issues. Yeah. All good?
Thanks.
Jeff, you're moving, but you're not unmuted. So is it just for you and Jill? It's cool.
Yeah, well, I was just commenting or talking out loud about that while you were just showing. But what about the flood certificate from FEMA? Wouldn't that take precedence over what you saw on Monsoon? Because we already saw that Monsoon had your wrong mailing address.
Monsoon, that's data entry from the county. Monsoon pulls the maps from here as well, but anytime you see an overlay on the map in Monsoon, you want to go down and click the direct link, and this is the FEMA website. See? Oh, I love it. Sorry, I Harry Potter all the time. Everyone's like, we see your lips are moving, but we can't hear you. So I always just want to make sure I get everybody's input. All right, so now we're going to go to Sky Slope. Now, if you're brand new to Realty One Group, don't forget you need to go in your dashboard. You click Sky Slope, a little spinny thing will spin and spin and spin for like an hour and do nothing. And then you log back in and click Sky Slope again, and it will take you here. It's beautiful, beautiful things. Up here on apps, you're going to click to forms. If you're brand new, you need to set this up with your NRDS number, which was assigned to you from your board. It is your National Realtor Database System number, also known as our NERDS number. Congratulations, we're all nerds together. However, since they don't like that terminology in the Realtor NAR meetings, they have decided to rename it your M1 number, which is your membership number, but I refuse to change. Okay, too much on that. Awesome. And so here, you won't have all these files put together yet. So what you're gonna do, you can create templates. I'm not here to teach you how to use all the back end of this, but we could just say create a new file. And when you create a new file, I'm gonna say seller, and it's going to be Kermit. Do me a favor, do not, under any circumstance, when you're making a listing, import data from MLS, unless it was already your listing once, because it will pull in the last listing agent. And you will be frustrated the whole time. They're like, how do you know who listed this last? It's like, I know everything, but I don't need them on my listing agreement, okay? No matter how much you type into it, even if you don't like SkySlope forms and you decide to use Transaction Desk from the state of Arizona, do not import data for a listing. Okay, I said that 3 times, so you have to remember it. Yay. And then you can sit there and you'll put in the address. And the cool thing is a lot of it autofills for you because it's pulling from tax records, it's pulling from the MLS. When it comes to addresses, you know, geocoding's like real. And then you can name your file. I'm naming this Kermit, so I don't think it's a real person. And then it'll say you can start with templates. If you have created your own template, you can use your template. These templates that might be there are lovely franchise owners who we love and respect. Oopsie shared them with the whole corporation, and we're not in Maryland, so please don't use the Maryland forms and so on. So unless it's yours, don't use one. And then you say create. No, thank you. Once you get to create, it will ask you to pick some forms. The forms I need you to pick, there are quite a few for your listing. Now, keep in mind, if you were in SkySlope under working documents, I have a document checklist for every type of file. So we're only going to focus on one form right now, because we all know our most important form is the agency disclosure, which we will study again next month in the office, the agency disclosure. But then after that, we need to get to the contract, the residential listing contract. If you are not pulling forms, you might be upset. You need to click the little arrow and make sure you have a minimum of the following libraries. And that's your AAR library, ARMLS, Realty One Group, and depending on what association you joined. Okay, I'm part of WeServe. Yeah, they all rock, but yeah. And we have some really great active adult forms that the local associations created. And if you can choose it, just choose it and use it. But we're actually going to be looking under the ARMLS library, which is known as ARMLS, Arizona Regional Multiple Listing Service, because that's where all of our listing forms are. So when I tell you on a listing to pull an addendum, if it is not a purchase contract, you go to the ARMLS library and you pull a listing addendum. Cool? Cool. So I'm going to just stick to all libraries. And I always like to put keywords because I can never find my forms alphabetically because I never know what they're really called. So I put listing, and they change the name of forms like on a constant basis. So good luck alphabetically. And what I'm looking for is the residential listing contract exclusive right to sell. Do you see that? The key is exclusive right to sell. I don't practice exclusive agency because there's a debate if I've earned the compensation as the listing agent, because that's like an open listing. That's not a Mandy thing. If you want to put that in your world, please read that document thoroughly, but I don't teach to that. And then we click add. It's either I'm all in or I'm not in, you know, I'm all in, I'm not in. And you say next. When you say next, it'll pull up all the forms you've selected, and you just click on the form and we can start typing. So here we go. Good job. So I've already put in Kermit the Frog as my seller. It's actually not the seller. If you look on the tax records, it said Mandy L. Neat. Is it true that sometimes it will list my name, but it might be in a trust? Yes. You won't find that out until your listing presentation. And it's not the end of the world to write that in additional terms that this property will be sold through the trust name is, and then they can initial off on that. So we always go to a listing presentation with our forms fully filled out. If there are any changes to the form, we do not use whiteout. Okay, so for the people who are new, who love their whiteout pens, throw them away. We never use them. It is illegal. You cross it out, and I still want to be able to read what you crossed out. And you have them initial the change. Also on a listing agreement, you sign it and the seller signs it. So the seller should initial and you should initial to the agreement because it's bilateral, you and your seller. Okay, enough of that. So I changed the name to the proper name, and broker, it is Realty One Group. Remember that they are hiring Realty One Group, but they're acting through you. If you are on a team or you have a business partner or whatever your situation is, you can list more than one agent here as their contacts. Okay. You then put the premises. We've already talked a lot about this today. And so I'm going to grab, yeah, and like I said, just let me know when you have questions, but so far it's pretty straightforward, right? You're going to grab the assessor number from the tax records, and then we're going to grab the legal description. Copy and paste is your best friend. Here's the thing. You will not be in trouble as a real estate professional in Maricopa County if you use the tools of the trade and they're incorrect. Now, Jeff, to your point, they have my mailing address wrong. That is just the person who sits down at the assessor that I got to go smile at through the computer. But this is scrubbed, and Monsoon is, we own Monsoon as ARMLS members. I just want you to know, this is owned by our system. It is scrubbed to a 99% accuracy of the information from the assessor. So we can't control the assessor. But at the end of the day, if you use the tools of the trade and they're wrong, we're not liable because we've done the standard of practice for our industry. Does that make sense? So if I'm really lot 151, we will figure that out in escrow though, because they definitely will control. We'll know that. So Control V, and I hit save. And so here is what a completed ER section looks like. If it is meets and bounds, yeah, I mean, they added way more lines. Now in Maricopa County, we usually don't use 10 through 13, just to be honest. This is not a common use. You have to be pretty custom and outside of an incorporated area. And we have some unincorporated areas, they're just not as common. But at the end of the day, when you leave Maricopa and Pinal County, I want you to know it's a whole different world. And they need actually more lines than just this. I just get lost. I was teaching up in Flagstaff and they were going to, I was looking at the tax records. I was like, oh, wow, yeah, copy and paste is real. And that would go in additional terms. So if you can't fit the legal here, you're going to say see page, see additional terms, and you're still going to put it. You're never going to put what some agents will try to train you to put. And that is as determined in escrow. That is not a legal description. We're not placing any blame. We're going to use the tools of the trade, okay? Next is the agreement. They can list this for sale, for rent, or for both. I would like you to know that if you get a rental application in and their true intent is to sell it, they must process first come, first serve, so to speak. Don't get me wrong. They can wait to review offers as long as they want sellers in control, but they can't tell someone I'm going to rent it out and then not act in good faith, right? So if your true intention is to sell it, let's try to sell it. If it doesn't sell, then let's put it on the rental market because I can definitely rent it. Like that's not a problem. Remember, we do not practice property management at all. You are simply helping someone facilitate the lease to get the keys or to facilitate the lease to give the tenant the keys. We do not handle deposit money. We do not handle earnest money. You are not a property manager, but usually we're going to mark sell. We're going to price out the home. I priced this one out yesterday when I was teaching a few agents, and it actually comps at $745, even in today's market, which I'm a little bit blown away, but I'm going to just pretend I don't know that. So you would put down where you have price pointed the home, or another thing I like to do is leave it blank, because then when I speak to the seller and we have a full-on discussion, I've empowered them to make the decision where they want to price the home. I actually have them fill that out and initial next to it, because who decides where to price the home?
client.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
The seller.
Yeah, not you. You're not. I'm like so many realtors that we meet in this industry, not in our office. Our office freaking rocks. And all of Realty One Group rocks. I'm just used to saying, sorry, Trina, our office, and you rock too, because you're part of us. And same with Myrna and Kimberly and all the other folks. I can't see your faces. Okay, so at the end of the day, I want to empower the seller, but so many agents think it's all about me. And they'll even use the I card. And I'm like, no, it begins and it ends with the client. Actually, I'm just there to educate, empower, and move forward and facilitate the deal, right? And reduce their risk management. So it's not a bad idea. Leave it blank, have them fill it out, have a discussion. You know, I know you guys just love how much I talk. You know, I just keep talking and you're like, hey, include us. And we never want a seller to feel that way. The term of the agreement depends on the market. If you listed a house with me 6 months ago, I would have taken a 3-month term because I could sell the house in 2 days. 6 months ago, I could sell in 2 days. Today, our marketplace is sitting 30 to 45 days. If you're above 500,000, most properties are above 500,000. And so knowing that, I'm probably going to take, all right, I have to get photos done. We have to prep the house. The house has to be stellar now, right? We have competition. I'm going to take a minimum of a 6-month listing agreement. That's me. You have to decide for you. That's me because I know I'm paying photos, I'm paying signage, I'm taking my time, I am paying probably to boost it in the internet world. I am designing websites, I have flyers. Oh my gosh, the list can go on and on, but at the end of the day, guys, you have so many tools at your fingertips. You should really have no to low cost on those items. So use your tools. But to the consumer, why am I going to list with you for 6 months? So many reasons, because I am putting all of me out there, even taking on the expense. And all I'm wanting you to do is do what you say and sell your home. So I'm giving you all the power, but yet I'm the one out. So I want 6 months of a commitment. Does that make sense? All right, so the term is extremely important. Capacity is important. Have the conversation, especially if the names are not all listed properly. You guarantee that you do own this property and you are able to give me authority to go list the property and negotiate on your behalf. It is so important. I know I'm not trying to scare you, but there are like 1 in 50 deals, and we do a lot of deals here through Realty One Group, that the owner lied and they don't have full capacity. And then they want to blame my agent. All right. So I get a little like possessive at that point. I'm like, I'll listen to you, but you're committing fraud. Isn't that fun? Did you intentionally misrepresent your capacity? So you just always want to double check. Anybody else that should be at the table, just ask more questions. Nothing about this has to be aggressive or mean. It's the art of asking beautiful questions. Modification, that would happen between both of us. This is a part that you need to stop and talk to somebody at. I will correct someone 3 times before I fire them. 3rd time they're getting fired though. So many, is that a kitty cat? Okay, sorry, I'm distracted easy. Yay, kitty cat. All right, so exclusive housing opportunity. So often if someone is selling their property and they have lived in this home and they've raised their kids in this home, they will say to you, I want to sell my house to a family. Can we advertise family home? Are you sure?
No,
Kimberly, no way.
no. And sorry, my camera doesn't work. Otherwise, I'd be on video. I apologize.
Okay. You're lovely, Kimberly. Thank you. I love that you just like jumped in. You're like, even though it's not working, I'm jumping on this one. Yeah, no. So, but can I ask you, Kimberly, is owner occupied a protected class?
If owner occupied is a protective class,
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Right. Right. And is an investor a protected class?
No.
Cool. So we're all on the same page. Families are protected, single people are protected, can't really go there, right? We know the intention of our seller is not a bad intention. They just want someone who's going to love their home because they feel connected, right? That's why we never really tell them that the house next door really does look exactly like their house. We're like, oh, there's so many unique qualities of your home because you're here. I think that's the only unique piece, but okay. What you can say to somebody is, I understand that you want someone who's going to love and take care of your home. However, please note, the only thing we can look at with people is their qualifications. Now you're saying you want a family to live here. What we could do is market your property to owner occupants only. And by doing so, the only way I can verify that is on the pre-qualification form. It will mark secondary residence, primary residence, or an investment. And we can just divvy it down to primary residence that are going to own or occupy your home. However, we can't discuss family or ask anything that would have anything to do with that. Further, in this agreement you're going to be signing today, you're going to agree so I can protect you and reduce your risk, not to look at cover letters or anything to do with who the buyer is as a person. They're known as love letters, and they're there to pull on your heartstrings. And it doesn't affect the buyer when they send it, but it sure does affect you if that's why you're making the decision. So,
Question about love letters.
Yeah.
Does Realty One even want you to present those, since there's so many issues around love letters? And
I love that question. I love how you said does Realty One Group want you to present it? Here's the misconception of our world. I have only so much power as your broker. Okay, at the end of the day, it's up to the seller. I actually need sellers' written instructions not to present them. So as Realty One Group, we are going to highly recommend in your listing agreement that you put seller direct listing agent in brokerage to withhold any and all seller personal letters, including what is known as love letters or personal information on the seller that would be covered under equal housing. And the reason is because even though we have gazillions of people in the world, I don't even know the number, right? In a community, people talk. Oh, did you know Joe sold the house because they had 2 kids? And then Sally's still looking in that neighborhood, and Sally's like, I don't have any kids, I have dogs. And I made an offer on that house, so I lost because I have dogs and I don't have kids. Well, now that seller and that listing broker has a possible fair housing violation. And Sally feels harmed. Right?
Do you have that quote? So it's not in the paperwork, but could that be written somewhere so that we can always copy and paste it into a contract, those exact words, so that we don't mess it up?
You know, Trina, I never remember exactly what I say, but I will definitely type it out for you on additional terms today. How about that?
Because it was really good. Okay, thank you.
Don't worry, I'm only ever 1 or 2 words off, but people always in class go, will you repeat? I'm like, but it came out, so it's over.
Thank you.
Thank you. But these are the kinds of things I'm going to say. However, if someone says to me, I'm not selling to those people, I'm not selling to that kind of people. In our community, only this religion lives here because it's walking distance to this or it's walking distance to that. Red flag. I will not advertise that. I will not ask those questions. And I will not be proceeding down this pathway. So we can't ask that. Everyone's the color of green, which is qualification based only, and their offer terms only. And if they keep pushing me on it, I will tell you that I will walk away from that listing. However, like I said, you have 3 shots. The last one, I'm not counting to 3 and like then putting you in the corner. I'm walking out. Say thank you so much for your time today. I wish I could serve you. However, I really value my license and my profession. And I hope you find a great buyer, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to provide you what you're looking for. Also, please do not call another Realtor member. We would prefer it if you call the licensee that does not decide to abide by the code of ethics and treat all humans like they need the basic need of shelter. Thanks so much. Goodbye.
You
No,
have
don't say
such
that.
an
I don't want you
eloquent
harmed.
you have such an eloquent way of telling people to go to hell. I love it.
I know that's the only reason you come to class on Sunday. I got to keep it like entertaining for you. But this is a big deal, and I want you to know that. And people in multiple offer situations in the past 2 years, one way that they have, not the professional, if we have bias that we're projecting that would violate equal housing, we should just walk away from the industry now, right? Like just walk out now. The name of the buyer should never affect your ability of how you will present the offer. However, it is unfortunate but true, it could affect the seller's mindset, and we don't know. So one thing we've been doing is naming offers, even though they have the right to their entire offer pool, right, to the actual copies, is when we look at things, they offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, and leaving the name of the actual buyer off the offer. So that way they're not going and meaning the seller, who's a human being, Facebooking or stalking on Google to say, oh, who are these people and who do I want to sell to? Because that shouldn't play into it, right? So these are just things to think about.
Mandy,
Yes.
did you say we shouldn't advertise that it's like walking distance to LGO or anything like that?
Right. Walking distance to LGO, that is that really cool place where you eat,
Arcadia
drink
Light.
coffee. Yeah. Love LGO, bad parking. No wonder you want distance. You can't say walking distance because that's discriminatory for disability. You can say close to or near.
Thank you.
And the whole debate, and please do not unmute and add because I'm going to just say it and move on, is on master bedroom. We're still calling it master bedroom. Some people choose to call it primary bedroom. That is not a discriminatory topic at this time with our language. However, please be cautious on your verbiage and respect other people for how they feel about things. So the more neutral you can make your verbiage when it comes to looking, just stare at these, stare at them while you're writing your description. I will tell you that I no longer say plantation shutters because I know the plantation word can be a trigger. I am not okay saying that just because it doesn't feel that way to me, it doesn't make someone else feel that way. If you notice when I started the Lucinda, I love shutters. I think they're beautiful. I called them white shutters because they happen to be white and they happen to be shutters. So just think as a professional and stare at this and say, should I be saying it? So the simplest things of walking distance, cycling distance, that falls under disability. I know I misspoke a few times today and I said armless because I was trained for 20 years to say that. That is actually a violation and I need to say ARMLS because it violates against a disability, okay? I have 3 LGBTQ kids and I will say that there's certain words that they say that I'm not comfortable with because they think it's okay as Gen Zers to say certain things. And I say, you better watch yourself because age is a big deal and how people were raised and those words could be thought of differently. So thank God they're not writing public descriptions on houses. So I hope that helps clear the air on how you do things. If you have questions on how things are said, or if you don't mean to, but it would harm a certain group of people or make them think different, you know, check in with your brokerage team so we can help you neutralize your marketing because we want everyone to feel welcome. Does that make sense? Yay. Kimberly, you unmuted, then you remuted, then you were like, ah.
You answered my question, so thank you.
You're lovely, thank you. Okay, section 4, my favorite section, compensation. Do you do this for free? Yay! Yeah, actually you do it for free until it closes. So just know if your client needs to cancel sometimes, you know, yay service. But at the end of the day, I do want to make some money. So I'm going to just let you know this part is a little bit important. Big, bold section. If there is a situation where someone is demanding certain compensation, please note a buyer's agent has only earned compensation at successful close of escrow. It is not illegal for a buyer's representative to call you as the listing agent and ask for a different amount than what is listed in the MLS. But it depends how they do it. The proper way to do that, which I'm just letting you know, so on the listing side, you can take this all in, as they would say, hey, I'm so excited to be showing 123 Main Street. My client wants to see it. However, we do have a buyer broker in place and my client has told me I have permission to call and ask if the seller or your brokerage would consider raising the compensation in MLS to that buyer broker fee, which is X. And I'll let you know if they decide to make an offer and at which time we can have this discussion one more time. However, I just want to make sure that I ask the question up front. That is proper. What is not proper is I can't believe you're only offering X. I'm not showing this property and my client won't be sending you an offer and I won't be showing it unless it's X. Bad tact, man, like can't do it.
So we have to get the buyer's agreement that we should ask for more. Okay, because we have it set for them, say at 3% with the buyer agreement. and they're offering 2.5%. At that point, my buyer is going to say yes because they don't want to pay the 0.5%.
Right, because it's a buyer cost.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of tactics in real estate purchase contracts we can use when you're on the buyer side, but right now we're on the listing side. So we want to make sure that you understand the proper way someone to ask you in the way. And you don't just shut them down and say, you can't ask that, that's illegal. What you say is, oh, awesome, why don't you put that in writing and send it over to me? And I'll go ahead and present that. So when they say, I won't show, I can then, as your broker, call and say, hey, other broker, by the way, guess who just violated anti-Sherman Trust and who's harming the consumers and why we have the lawsuit with the Department of Justice. You might want to put them in check. Okie dokie. Sarah.
When you have that initial conversation, is there, like, can you ask for them, if they agree, can you ask for them to please email you that agreement, or you don't do that? No, okay.
Just like you never have to give your listing agreement because it's between you and your seller to the buyer side, no matter how much of a fit they throw. I want to see this section 41 through 40. It's none of your business. It's between me and my seller. My seller's hiring me. My seller's not hiring you. My seller's cooperating with you, but they're not hiring you. And same thing on a buyer broker. That's between the buyer and their agent. Therefore, they never have to provide a copy to you. So
Like you get in mail, like an email, like per our conversation, please confirm by reply that it will be a 3% commission.
you could do that, but just to let you know, nothing is enforceable unless both brokers sign. So it actually trumps the agent. So unless the brokers are signing, nothing's enforceable yet. But I just wanted to let you know that this section here, you just need to know that can be asked. Does it, and it's how tactful you handle it, and never just respond with no. Always try to get that request in writing because it's always based on the verbiage. And we do have a duty of disclosure to let our seller know everything. Okay, 34 to 35, retainer fee. You can absolutely take a retainer fee. This is an upfront fee. This is not made out to you. I know, Kimberly, you're like, come on now. This is not made out to you personally. This is made out to Realty One Group. And then remember, we cut all money back. However, if you are going to take retainer fees, I would love to point out to you that you better have a standard of practice written out for yourself on when you would charge a retainer fee and when you don't charge a retainer fee. I personally might charge a retainer fee on a luxury listing over a certain price point because it needs staging and other things to go on so they can help me with my upfront cost. Right, so if it's over $2 million, I ask for a $500 retainer fee, possibly, right? It's based on you guys. But if it's under 2 million, maybe I'm like, well, I don't need this kind of service, or I don't need that, or the luxury listings that you go in and it's like so many things everywhere, right? Like everything's everywhere. And you're like, oh, I really need someone else to come in and tell them what to remove because they're about to get offended. You know, those are the ones I might take a retainer fee on, but I better write that out, right? Because if I take a retainer fee with Tom, but I don't charge one with Trina, Tom might be like, why? Because I'm a dude. Well, that goes back to equal housing, and that actually affects us too. Fair housing affects us. Are we treating everybody the same? But maybe I take a retainer fee, you know, on a flip that's going to be way too expensive because my investor like is still in January of 2022 instead of in August of 2022. You know, and I'm like, I'll do it, but you're going to pay me up front some money for my time and energy. So
Hey,
these
Mandy?
are things
Sorry.
you need to write out. What's up, Tom?
So when you're saying you got to write that out, if you have a standard, where do you write that out?
For yourself. So as Realty One Group, you have a policy and procedure manual, right? But that's for Realty One Group. And that's as an independent contractor saying, I'm going to follow this. If you're going to do something on top of that and you're ever investigated, you should have your own Tom McKay policy and procedures if you're going to do certain things for certain people and not. So you can show if you're ever investigated, even though we didn't set that as a minimum because we let you own you, right? You do you. You could say, no, this is the standard of practice I follow with everybody. I treat everybody equally, and this is when I charge these amounts. So I'm just saying, if you're going to go here at all, you better have that. A company that does this on every single deal. So one way to win against Berkshire Hathaway is the Purple Company. I'm not saying anything bad. It's just fact that they take retainer fees on every one of their deals, and that does not go to the listing agent. That goes to Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett is a very smart man, and he knows how to make his money. And so they go in, and if they don't charge the seller a retainer fee, the agent comes out of pocket for their listing to the realty company. So when you go up against the purple company, you're like, well, I don't charge upfront retainer fees. And you win. All right, so these are things to know. Commissions, this is the part everyone seems to mess up on me. And I think it's because if you in your head can't see your value, which you should go to Leah Kramer's class on listing presentations for your next Rev Up. If you don't see your value, they're definitely not going to see your value. So if you can't put the actual amount here, if that makes you feel icky, then maybe you're charging too much. So I need you to believe in yourself, okay? So you click sale. For me, this always says 6%. I have that pre-printed on all my deals. And then this says 3%. Pre-printed. However, here's the discussion. In today's day and age, did we get one of the largest raises that any industry has gotten in forever? Even with us stabilizing, have we gotten a raise? Everything's based on sales price.
Yes.
Thank you, Kimberly. You're like, heck yes, we did. I know. I used to be happy. I was like, I make $5,000 because I sold a $175,000 house. Yay! And now everyone's like, I'm not making 20. It's like, come on, guys. Like, back off a little bit. Here's the discussion you have to be prepped for here. You have to know to stop talking, which is extremely hard for me. You have to wait for them to ask, and you have to be willing to go there. So when they say, what are you charging? And I get to this page, I say, well, actually my cost is 6%. Please note that I will be splitting that with the other agent. And they say, well, I was meeting with my friend, and my friend is only going to charge me 5%. And I sit there and go, that's great. Your friend, I don't know what your friend does, but that's fabulous that they're so willing to do that for you. And then I go, and honestly, I don't even buy milk these days without a coupon at Fry's. I don't know about you, but digital apps on my phone make me happy. And then I just go, so I hear what you're saying. Let me ask you a question. If your friend's so willing to discount their livelihood, how fast are they willing to discount your sales price instead of putting more money in your pocket? And then I have to hold my breath because let's face it, I don't shut up. So I hold my breath and sit on my hands and mentally count to like 30. And they go, I never thought about it that way. Oh yeah. What I am willing to do for you is in the event you decide to buy another property in Arizona, I will sign with you a 6-month term buyer broker agreement at 3%. Please note that sometimes you have to come up with the difference in today's market. And you will also purchase your property through me, giving you a discount on the front so you can make more money on your listing, and I'll drop that to 5%. And then we'll only offer 2.5% to the other side. And in turn, I'm also representing you on that purchase. How does that sound?
I do not understand what you just said.
Okay, so let's start over. Thank you so much for asking me for that discount. Now, what I am willing to do for you, since you are buying another home here in Arizona, is if in the event that you sign a buyer broker agreement with me today for 6 months, or maybe I do, it depends on the market, guys. Like sometimes they're a year, but sometimes you don't want to lock yourself into another human that long either. So just FYI, it's like a lease. Don't take over a year the first time. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, if you sign a buyer broker agreement with me, and I'm also going to represent you on the purchase side, you're going to sign a 3% buyer broker with me. And what I will do is discount this by 1%, giving 5% total and 2.5% to the other side, just understanding that you might need to come up with the difference on the purchase if something is offered as a lesser cooperation, because here we're offering 2.5% to the other agent. So sometimes you're gonna need to come up with that difference, but at least you make more money on the front end.
So when they do if they were to do a purchase agreement with you, you would ask for 3%, whereas you might not. Well, anyway, that's the whole thing is I'll discount this 1. And then if I help you buy a house for 3%.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So a buyer broker agreement, for those of you who have never heard that term, is the agreement between the buyer and the buyer's agents, the loyalty agreement, saying, I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm going to definitely buy a house. So I'm going to make more money by representing them on 2 deals, right? So in my standard of practice, I'm willing to discount the listing side 1% to 5%. This is just Mandy, though. You can do whatever you want. I'm willing to do that to 5% if they will also agree to sign a loyalty agreement to purchase through me as well, because then I'm going to make the commission on that side too. But I'm going to set my minimum on their purchase on that buyer broker agreement, which is a whole separate agreement.
I think that's the part I don't understand, is it's coming off the other end somehow. That's where I'm getting lost.
Okay, so you have 2 transactions. You have your
Right,
listing transaction, and that's, you're going to sell their house. They're going to make a net, and it's either going to be based on 6% or 5% at this point for commission, right? And then they're going to turn around and buy another house. Not all sellers use their listing agent to also purchase a house.
So may I ask a question right there?
Yeah.
Would you use this as a possible to sign on to be, without them asking for a reduced, a 5%, would you use this as a bargaining tool and say, if you sign with me for your buying, as your buying agent, blah, 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 blah.
I don't.
Do you know what I'm saying here? So would you use it as a bargaining,
Could, Trina, if that makes you feel more confident in the conversation. I mean, it's up to you. I don't offer a discount until I'm asked for a discount.
Okay, I was just saying to get that other listing from them, to ensure that you have it.
The purchase, their purchase.
Correct.
I know I wait for them to ask. Some will never ask. I'm going to say 8 out of 10 will ask for a discount of some way. The other discount you can give is, Jill, you good on that? Did I answer your question? The problem is, Jill, you haven't seen the buyer broker yet. So when the next thing after class today, look up the buyer broker exclusive agreement. And if any of you are a little off on like what I'm talking about right now, I need you to pull up the buyer broker exclusive agreement and you'll see what you're signing up for on the buyer side and how the money talk comes into action. Okay. But that's one way for them to reduce.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll probably see you later for ice cream. So you can always say, hey, I still don't get what the heck you're saying. And so then, oh, by the way, y'all are invited to Tatum and Shea today between 1 and 3 for ice cream. Okay. And so then the other thing is, the other reason I would reduce my commission, I would write, and Trina, I got you. Like when we get to the part, I will type it out. In the event no other realtor is involved in the transaction other than Mandy Neat, the total commission will be reduced to 4% of the purchase price. Or you could say 5. The reason is that is called variable commission. So the buyer could be unrepresented, no agent, or it might be dual agent with just me. Now I'm saying I'll do the whole deal for 4%, which saves my client 2%, right? So if it's a $500,000 deal, that saves my client 10 grand. Now, I'm not going to speak to a client who's represented by an agent saying, hey, if you don't use them, but in the MLS, sometimes you see a Y. It'll say variable commission under where it shows compensation, and it'll have a Y. That means, yes, there's a variance built into the listing agreement. You have the right as a buyer's agent to call the listing agent and say, hey, what's the amount of that variance? And they must disclose it. Because if someone comes unrepresented and makes an offer, or they have a dual agency as a single agent and they make an offer, the seller's netting 10,000 more. And don't you think that would help the seller decide what offer they're going to take? Does that make sense? Okay, so there's variable commissions, a reason I would reduce my commission, and if they're buying another house in Maricopa County.
Mandy,
However,
sorry.
no.
Okay, if I were to call the other agent and say, hi, I was curious what the variable rate for the commission is, or you can double check the verbiage for us, but what, like, other than them saying like, well, in the event of dual agency or in the event of unrepresented agent, it goes down, but like, how would that necessarily affect you who's potentially representing other sellers that are represented by you?
Representing other sellers, you would only be asking that if you were a buyer's agent, and it would affect your buyer's offer, because your buyer's offer would probably need to increase by the variance to try to compete with the variance if they had other deals on the table. So if they tell me there's a $10,000 difference, it's 2%, the variance, what they would say is the variance is 2%. Or they might say the difference is 2%. And it's a $500,000 listing, and they say, yeah, and we have 2 other offers. Well, I'm going to tell my buyer, right? You probably want to increase to offset the variance in the event they have somebody on the table that is not represented.
Okay, so it's for your client to give a competitive offer.
Mhm.
Okay.
But it's a way for you to win the listing with making the seller feel like it's possible that they're going to make more money. I will tell you, with 30,000 realtors in Maricopa County, actually, I think we have like 35,000. And the fact that even though we're going to have a mass exodus as realtors, we're still going to have what? Every other person you meet's a realtor. So with that being said, most people have representation. So the likelihood of having to use it's actually kind of unlikely. It's like 1 in 10 might actually have that. Lucinda, you muted.
Yeah, you were talking about this variance, however, that it would be listed in the MLS. Where is that listed? Next to the commission where it says buyer commission of 3% or something like that? Is it variance or?
Yeah,
That's in that section.
yeah, let's just look up my old, since we're working on Air Libre. So when you're in here and you want to make this bigger, you go all the way down, and where it shows here, this, let me see if I can make this bigger for y'all.
No, it's fine.
Everyone's screen's so different. Right here where it shows listing information and it says seller's agent, no. Oh, actually that says sub agent, no. So that will always be no. We'll do that in your input class. Buyer broker, yes, they're offering 2.5%. And then it says variable, and then it says no.
Okay. It
That
say
would
yeah.
be a
Okay.
Y.
I'm always curious what type ER means.
Exclusive right to sell. It'll be an EA or an ER.
Right.
Okay, cool. All right, so in this section, yep.
Was wondering, because you were saying that the seller would increase more cost if there was a variance in the commission. Why would that be?
The variance wouldn't increase the cost, it would increase the profit to the seller. So if you drop the expense of the commission by $10,000, and the seller's making $10,000 more.
Okay, but there would never be a situation where the buyer would be under a 3% listing agreement and the seller would be responsible for that difference if you're offering 2.5, right?
The seller's only responsible based on the terms of that contract. And so the seller's responsible to pay the listing brokerage, and then the listing brokerage compensates the buyer broker.
Okay.
Even though, guys, just to let you know, that was like a testing question that I just said. The reality, we never really feel like we pay the the buyer broker as a listing brokerage, because escrow sends out the checks, but the seller signs off on it. All right, so, okay, we can like go in this, please come to a NetSheet class the next time I have one. I just had one, and it's on the Zoom on our Facebook group. So make sure you go into the Facebook group, and we just had a class on net. It's Realty One Group - Paradise Valley. So this section here, we've kind of covered. Now I go with this filled out. If it's going to change, I'm going to line it out and have them write it and initial it. Or I'm going to have it pre-typed in additional terms depending on the situation. Sometimes, they're also going to buy through you. So Trina, some of the things we talked about today would have already been typed in. However, if we don't know that yet, because we can only get out so much before we actually sit at a table, that's why it might be pre-printed. The rental side, same thing. This is not a rental class. If you have a rental, I will tell you rentals are more litigious than sales. Please go to your managing broker / mentor and have assistance brought to you. But usually it's the total amount of the rental on the gross, or it could be a flat fee and then what's offered on the MLS. The key to remember is line 39 or line 45 is the total, and 41 through 44 is the amount of the total that's offered. So some people put 3 and 3 here, you're working for 0. So don't do that.
Can you, sorry, I just need a clarifying question. So if you are offering a 4% change, if they do use you as a buyer listing agent, or sorry, as a buyer agent as well, then you go in and physically cross it out and make the changes. You're not able to put that on the paperwork before.
You would have to know it before to put it on the paperwork before.
Okay.
I'm not gonna offer discounts I don't know about, but if on the phone they're like, oh, and I'll be buying a home, I'm gonna come totally prepared with everything written in additional terms and leave this completely alone. And I'm about to show you how to do that too.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we're through that, one thing I need you to go down to is to understand the sections down here that nobody reads. I'm just gonna put that in there. You can talk to a 20-year-old veteran in real estate and they have never read this for some reason. It just makes me laugh. After expiration, this is one of the most misunderstood pieces. I usually put 60 days. This is, oh, I hit tab and it went away. This is where, in the event my seller gets shady. Do you ever meet shady humans that are all about them? I know you don't. You have great humans. I just get to deal with them because I took this job. But your humans are great. Well, sometimes sellers won't leave their house when showing, right? And they'll go to the buyer, hey, if you just wait till my deal with Tom expires, we can cut out the agents and I can give you a better deal. And Tom's like, oh, I will find them. I will never invite them for another dinner. Because that's just wrong. I put all this time and energy into you and now you're trying to like work around me, right? In the event you do that, and I can prove that that person saw that property within my time frame, you owe me compensation, seller. Please note, to make that work as a realtor, you would have to take them to court. Not Realty One Group, you. We would have to back you and sign off on it. But at the end of the day, you would have to enforce that. You can enforce it. We do win. But then sometimes, is it worth it? Like you have to balance it all out. But if they list with somebody else, so they were like, Tom, you've been lovely, but you know, we're just gonna let this expire. And then they go and they list with Trina. I know that wouldn't happen, Tom. We saw all of our listings. But then we go and they list with Trina. Well, that 60 days doesn't matter anymore because they have a new ER agreement in place and that would cancel it out. It's when the seller's trying to slide around the commission. Does that make sense? Okay, failure to complete. This is essential to have as a discussion right away. Failure to complete is simply, let's say the buyer was purchasing the property. Everything was going great. Then the buyer did some bad things and they went in breach of contract and the seller canceled on the buyer. That's the only way a seller can cancel. That's contract class. And as a listing agent, you won that earnest money for your seller. Congratulations. This like never happens. It does happen, but it's like 1 in 50. Usually a buyer has every way out and they get their money back. Okay. But when a buyer hugely messes up, and as a listing agent, you win that earnest money. This says half of that earnest money can be paid to the broker up to the commission amount. Why? Because we put time, energy, and effort in. But I will tell you, if you don't tell your seller that and they take a contract and they take earnest money for $1,500 and then this happens and you're like, well, I get $750, you get $750. To us, that seems fair, right? Because like I did all this energy, it didn't work out, but like I got you the money. But you never have the discussion, that seller is going to be ticked. And I'm going to ask you, is it really worth pressing it? Because I'm going to tell you, I can't really enforce it if you never had the conversation, right? Because at the end of the day, they would have negotiated $3,000 for earnest money than if they knew that was going to happen. So you have to think about like at what point, and it's not a bad conversation. How the conversation kind of goes in my world is this section talks about the fact that buyers usually get their money back. But for some reason, if they go in breach of contract and I put all the time, effort, and energy in that you've hired me to do and reduce your risk, and I win you that earnest money, woohoo! But sad, we're not closing, but we'll go back to the market. We'll make it happen. We don't quit until we get it done. Then my brokerage is going to be paid half that earnest money and you'll get the other half. So I'll remind you of this in offer negotiations because you need to decide how much money you need to go off the market. And then they usually go, oh, that makes sense because you're putting all the work in. Yeah, but if I just skip over it, they're going to be pretty mad. Or this also goes, hey, seller, if you choose not to perform, if we get down to it and you go, you know what, I don't want to sell my house, I'm not signing, we have an issue and you owe me compensation. Please note, a buyer broker only earns compensation at close of escrow. A listing agent actually earns compensation when you bring a ready, willing, and able buyer. But typically you can't prove that unless you go under contract and the seller chooses not to perform, because terms matter, right? So they were like, yeah, they brought me someone, but they wanted to close in 60 days and I wanted to close in 30 days. Well, there's that battle of able and negotiation. But if they've signed the deal and they go, I just don't want to sell the house, they're still liable for that compensation. The only time you can really stick a listing to tell them that they owe you money is if you have a cash buyer that's open to all terms. I've brought you a ready, willing, and able buyer based on the amount listed on the ER agreement, and you're deciding not to perform. Listing brokerages earn compensation that way. Most realtors will not harm their relationships for the future by trying to sue somebody for compensation at that point. They're usually just the questions, why not? I'd love to work with you in the future, yada, yada. But sometimes you find slimy people and you're like, no, you're going to pay me or I'm not releasing you. And so you just kind of have to decide where you are and talk to your brokerage. But that's what this section goes over. Any questions? Okay, cool. Next section, fixtures and personal property. Go through this with your client. If it is affixed to the wall and you remove it from the wall and it causes damage, it is a fixture. Stop removing things from the wall. But then you go to Paradise Valley and they have these really pretty mirrors. In Arcadia too. Arcadia loves this. In the Biltmore area loves this too. And they have these beautiful mirrors. And the beautiful mirror is attached by a nail in the wall. It's not glued to the wall. It's just a nail in the wall. That might be considered artwork. That might not be a fixture. So we need to ask lots of questions. Are you planning on leaving the mirror or taking the mirror? I will tell you, being an Air Force wife and being from Michigan. Yeah, Jeff, what's up? I was so confused why one of my agents kept saying a fridge was a fixture. It's like 15 years ago. They're like, Mandy, we don't have to write in the fridge. The fridge has to stay. And I was like, no, you have to write in the fridge. The fridge doesn't have to stay. The fridge has wheels. The fridge can roll away. And they're like, no, Mandy, if we take the fridge, it takes the cabinets with the fridge. And that's when I learned there was such a thing as a built-in fridge. Never happened in my life. We just rolled them in, rolled them out. And so a built-in fridge is not personal property. It's affixed to the property. However, a fridge with wheels is personal property. So we need to ask them, does the fridge stay? And if so, what one? The one in the kitchen or the one in the garage? And describe it. I'm going to just say this, even though it's not a purchase contract class. Never, ever, ever put as seen in MLS. Like rule 1, MLS is not contractual. MLS is a marketing plano. It's marketing, marketing, marketing. And I do not agree with instructors that say you need to list the serial number. I'm like, have you shown a house in 120-degree weather? Good luck remembering that. I'm lucky to get in the key box. Okay, my hand is burnt. Oh, by the way, for y'all showing houses the rest of the summer, take oven mitts if you haven't already put them in your back trunk, because those boxes get hot and you will burn. It will burn. This is the only reason to bring my husband to go, I've unlocked the box. Will you give me the key? Love you. Because he's unlicensed, right? You push the hot thing. So you want to put at a bare minimum GE stainless steel bottom freezer. What's so hard about it? It's a description. Describe it. This way we don't have questions when you get to the contracts, because sometimes we're in the hustle muscle as agents. We're like, all right, let's get this offer in. But you should go back to your listing agreement and say, what did they want to negotiate out? What did they want to negotiate in? The other thing is draperies. Draperies remain in the home. Some people like to say my curtains match my bedspread. When you walk in that beautiful purple master, and everything, the walls are green and we're like, we're gonna need to paint. And the bed sheets are royal purple and the draperies are like green and royal purple. You have to ask yourself as a realtor, do they intend to keep those? Okay, if the answer is yes, we need to write those out of a purchase contract, and we need to take notes here saying, hey, 108 to 109, I need to remind myself these things will not be conveying. Okay, so this is a big deal. If you notice that there's a solar system, please ask more questions. Do not just take that listing. You have so many questions to ask, my friend. Well, you can take the listing, but we're not marketing until we know everything. If there's an alarm system, ADT will typically leave the items, however, the service goes away, right? Propane tanks, this is a big deal. And rural areas, this is why we don't dabble in Payson. It's because some of them have gas and some of them do not. Some of them have rented propane tanks and they need to be refilled and they're quite expensive. I just found out that there are septic tanks above ground in the Flagstaff area that have to be emptied on a monthly basis if you live there full time, and they like stand on statues and all your poo goes in there, and people come and empty these things and they have a fancy name and you can lease the equipment. Can you imagine leasing the poop thing? Like, I just died and I don't even want to work up there now. I'm just like, I am sorry, I will always take a referral fee. Water softeners, big deal. Also, salt pools. If they say, I'm so excited, my pool is salt. Yes, that is quite exciting. For some reason, this other form of chlorinating a pool makes people very happy because their skin seems to be softer. I know I'm cheap, mine's still chlorine. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's because the pool cleaner who cleans your pool changed it over and converted it to a salt pool. So when that cleaning stops, the salt cells go away. The whole equipment for the salt cells can go away. So we have to ask more questions. So this is a part that you should be spending at least 10 to 15 minutes with your sellers on. The pot rack conversation is real. If you see a pot rack in the kitchen, they usually have eye hooks in the ceiling attaching the pot rack, even though they might be brass or fancy looking, they're little eye hooks, okay? Ask them, is your intention to leave the pot rack? The pot rack might be a great marketing feature, if done correctly, of that kitchen. They will say, yes, you need to explain that that's not an option because the intention of the eye hooks is to hang the pot rack. So if you want to keep it, we need to write that out now. Okay. So lots of questions, lots of things for you guys to go over there. Agency, love this section. Any questions so far? You guys doing all right? It's 10:19.
I had a question. So let's see, you said, let me go back up to where that was. You said if there's something like a solar system, I think you said take the listing, but don't market it yet until we get more information. So if I leave the listing agreement and we've signed it, and I go and speak with you about the solar system and the solar system, Mars and Jupiter, the solar.
It's so real, right?
Yeah. Can we back out of that if we're not comfortable with it? I don't know.
Oh, we'll never back out of a solar deal, Jill. The
Okay.
thing is, we need to know if it's leased or owned. We need to know if
Okay.
there's a loan that's assumable. We need to know if it's lease terms that are assumable, because at the end of the day, it's how you market that to the consumer.
Gotcha.
That will affect their ability to purchase the home, and it also affects disclosures.
Okay. All right.
So it's a really big deal. And the only solar that adds value is what kind of solar?
The sun.
What? Solar that is purchased and owned in full.
Oh, solar, yeah.
Yeah, owned in full, meaning no loan, completely paid off. The rest of them are another utility, and honestly, it's just another thing to maintain on a property. So everyone's like, oh, it's these all these advantages. I'm like, oh, you must sell it. I mean, there's advantages for the world, but let me tell you, not really in the world of value for a house, unless what Sarah and Tom said is true and is fully paid off. So these are the things, Jill, you need to know, and never think that you're violating the code of ethics on competence if you take a listing and you know nothing about solar, because you have a mentor in your offices, and part of the code of ethics is if you don't have knowledge, that you will pair up with someone in your office with knowledge. Agency representation is a big deal. It goes back over what you should have already told them, which is we're going to owe them obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable skill and care in the works when they hire us. Until you elect to hire me in today's conversations, please note to advocate for yourself, right? Because I won't have confidentiality to you until you sign the ER agreement. Now, what you need to know is the conduct of brokers. It's my job to treat everybody honestly and fairly. So can I get you guys all to write down a keyword for me to remember how to do this? Because this is the part, it's not that we don't advocate for our clients, it's that we forget how to treat the other side. And sometimes it's hard to work with the other side. So please write down the word hard. And I'm about to define the word hard for you. So when you're having a hard time with the other side, smile really big and say, I'm going to need to call you back. Or this will be in writing. Thank you so much for your time today. We're getting nowhere. So the H stands for honesty. I owe the other side honesty. The A stands for accounting. I am accountable to the transaction and to comply with commissioner rules. Commissioner's rules being I always have to expeditiously be performing all acts that result from a real estate transaction. Trina, do not feel bad you don't have that memorized. Like I didn't have it memorized until like you're 10. And so accounting, the R stands for reasonable skill and care for the standards of our industry. And the D stands for disclosure. I must disclose all material facts about the property or my seller's ability to sell. I never once have to say their motivation. That was actually violating confidentiality. So these are things you have to remember in this section. That's the easiest way for me to go over that for you when you get to limited representation. If you are sitting down with someone from the East Coast, not the Midwest, the East Coast, they don't like the term dual agency because that's where all of our rules and Adina Realty, Adina starts with an, it's hard to say for me. I think it's Adina Realty had the very first dual agency case in the 90s, and buyer broker representation was created in 1994 or 1996, one of those two, because of their situation. And it's that everybody was a sub-agent of the seller. Everybody worked for the seller. And a seller said, I saw you guys advocating for that buyer. So that means all of us would have worked for sellers, even sellers that aren't in Realty One Group. No one worked for the buyer. And so a bunch of sellers got together and sued us as an industry or that realty, right? That realty company saying, nope, you advocated for the buyer. And so a lot of people were like, well, that's not fair. That means everyone's working for both. And they have, as my friend says, one butt and two saddles, and you can't ride two horses with one butt. And so we had this huge lawsuit that happened. So what I like to say is, real estate in Arizona is extremely different than most of the country. And here in Arizona, even though I have one, but I have a lot of colleagues within Realty One Group. And in the likely event, actually, that one of our agents also has a buyer interested in your property, I need to let you know that if we go under contract with that agent, instead of being your coach, I'm going to become your ref. Because I'm going to let you know what your options are, but you're going to be in charge, and I can't do anything detrimental to the buyer or yourself, and the other agent has to treat it the same. In many areas of our country, this is different. Dual agency is only in the situation of one agent representing both. Here, it's any of you representing either side, that's dual agency, and your coach hat goes off and your ref hat goes on. But you're always in charge, seller. You're always in charge of telling me how you want to move forward. It's just instead of coaching you, I'll lay out your options and I'll sit back and say, what would you like to do? But we don't want to cut out the possibility because we do represent a ton of buyers in Maricopa County and have 3,000 active professionals. Smile big and say, which is another reason you're hiring me so I can sell your house faster. Isn't that exciting? Okay, so then we go over to the next section. And these are all covered, by the way, this whole section, we added it into the residential listing agreement last year in 2021 when we revised this. This is the first time in our state's history that we've had one listing agreement that was adopted by all of the multiple listing services. So the state actually created this. And I'll just let you know, your state association just wants to make sure you really have the agency conversation. So this is actually all covered under your agency disclosure document, which is known as, for those who don't know how to find that in your forms, the real estate agency disclosure and election. So Tom loves the alphabet, and I watched you, Tom, in the office when you were brand new, and you would go, okay, it's not under A, because I kept saying agency, right? And it's under R. They just like to really mess with us. Broker authority. This is extremely important to go over with them. My role is not to maintain your home. My role is to market and sell your home. Please note, you are not the general contractor. You are not responsible to hire people on their behalf, okay? That's covered 129 to 130. That is a misconception of humans. So let's just get that out of the way right now. I need you to keep your house clean. I will not be cleaning your house. Now, open house day, I will take Windex. Just gonna put it out there, guys. Have no shame in some Windex. Multiple listing service, we will be placing your home on the multiple listing service, which means it will syndicate to the World Wide Web and every other realtor that's a member of the multiple listing service. But I need your permission for a few things. Are you okay with me putting a sign in the front yard? I'm gonna say they are. Why? Because list to last, get your name and number and be unique. Photos and videos. Are you okay with me taking photos? At a bare minimal, the ARMLS rules is I have to take a front elevation photo to put your home on MLS. However, I really would love to showcase your home properly and hire a professional photographer that we already covered in the marketing section of today's conversation. Does the owner acknowledges those images and photos and floor plans and everything else created by me are mine. They are not the sellers. So if I am fired or I fired them, they cannot go and use my photos. Lockbox, I'm going to take a blue box with me and they are going to allow me to hang a lockbox. Here's the thing, guys, I will not show up every time a buyer's agent wants to show a house unless it's a multi-million-dollar property and it's a standard of that market. There is no way I can be everywhere, right? Like all of you, you have to think about it. If you have a doctor's appointment right now and the buyer wants to see the house, have the buyer agent go show the house. That's why we have a lockbox. The lockbox is amazing in the fact that it will tell you when they go in, it will tell you when they leave, it will tell you who was in the property, and you can set everything up with your clients. Offers. This is the part that has been misunderstood in our industry for years. You will call a listing agent and say, hey, I'm so excited. I'll be writing an offer today on 123 Main Street. Do you have any other offers? And they say, yes. And you go, great. Could you tell me what your offers are? Because we really want to win. And they'll say something like, it's illegal for me to tell you that. No, it's not. It's never been illegal. Nothing in real estate is confidential when it comes to offers. Okay, nothing. Your offer would actually have to have a non-disclosure agreement signed up front for it to be confidential. However, if it's limited representation, if they have any other offer from within their brokerage, they cannot tell you any of the offers then, period, because that would be detrimental to that buyer and they have to treat everybody the same way. So don't push them too hard. But if they go, yeah, I'm happy to tell you, it's because they've received permission from their seller. I always mark is able to disclose. Why? Because if your client needs concessions and I have a full price cash offer, I don't want to waste your time or your client's time. They're going with a cash offer. I'm just going to tell you right now. No way you look at that is that person needing concessions going to win. And Kimberly, the only way they might think they're going to win is because they're going to write me a sappy love letter that I'm not going to give my clients anyways. And then this 157 to 162, I always mark accept backup offers. I will keep this at UCB status and MLS, and that's under contract accepting backup offers, which means I still have to get my seller on board to show periodically, all the way up until closing. I don't go to pending at any point personally because it's not done in my world until it's done. I can't do anything about, right? If the buyer's gonna close or not, but I can market that property all the way up until closing. I can show that property all the way up until closing. I always, this is a Mandy thing though, this is up to you and your seller. I always have withhold verbal offers. I have had one too many times in my lifetime where someone calls with something too good to be true. And I have a duty of disclosure of everything to my seller, right? So I call my seller, hey, I just got a phone call, too good to be true, but this is what they said they would offer. Guess who disappeared? The buyer. Guess who now thinks their home is worth something completely outrageous? The seller. I don't do that. Unless it's in writing, it's not real. It doesn't mean, in writing does not mean it has to be on our offer document. In writing could be a text message, could be an email, could be an intent of purchase, you know, so, but writing is so much better than a phone call. And then withhold all offers once an owner accepts. I don't usually click this one because I want my seller to always know everything, but I'm going to keep my seller on board. I'm moving forward in good faith with the contract on the table. Okay. We have to respond based on the contract and what's being negotiated here. But in the back end, just know we have a few more offers lined up. But I need to present everything. I'd rather my seller know everything than be told I kept them in the dark. 165 through 167, you reserve the right to cancel, not the client. You reserve the right to cancel. And it has to be unilaterally for cause. You have to go to your broker and your broker cancels the contract. You do not cancel the ER agreement. Okay, the broker cancels the ER agreement. And that's usually because they did something to violate equal housing, or they did something where they're not disclosing a material fact and they're directing you to do something illegal. Okay. We're almost there, guys. You need a break? Or are you doing good? Good, 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 good. All right, owner obligations, that they will give us accessibility to the property. No, look, that does not mean you can just show up at your listing without being announced and asking permission. That's just bad form. But they're gonna make it accessible for people. Now, I will fire someone if all of a sudden they're like, oh no, we only want to show on Mondays from 8 to 2. So I can't sell that. I'm not selling that. You can either show the home, for me, this is just me, or you don't make it accessible. You need somebody else. I can't service you per our agreement if you only make it accessible for this much time. Now, in the past 2.5 years, you saw agents going in with that mindset. I mean, they did a good job at marketing the concept of, hey, no hassle, and it's a frenzy. Let's just get this sold in 3 hours. But do you think that's the highest offer that seller could have obtained if they only showed the house for 3 hours? Because some doctor was at work, some lawyer was at work, and they might have been able to offer a lot more. So we'll see what happens with that, y'all. Security, insurance, showings, audio, and video. I'm not responsible for any loss or damages that could happen in your home. You are. You are able to have your security up. However, if you have audio devices or security where you're seeing people and hearing people, we do need to post that on the front door. Please note, you'll be under surveillance today. There is audio and visual recordings in this property. That is a really good thing, is to post a notice disclosing. Guys, I need you to know you are always being recorded. Like, everyone has a ring. Everyone has a something. It seems like you're always, always, always being recorded. So do not, when you're showing homes to a buyer, stand there and discuss if they want the house or not. All right. Unless it's a tactic. And then that's a whole nother discussion. Okay. Adverse
Question, would you put that somewhere on like additional comments or anything as well, or just post it on the front door?
I just post on the front door. You can, if your seller says, will you put it in there? Kimberly, my only issue with our MLS planos is agents don't always read the whole thing. Now you
Really?
all,
No, I'm just kidding.
they're like, what's a CBS code? And I'm like, well, it was in the MLS. What a CBS code for this class is a call before showing. It's one way to get them to say yes to that lockbox. It's a 7-digit code that you program per your lockbox that they would only receive if they called you and have set up that appointment or confirmed with you. And they have to put that number in before you can put in your little digits to get in the lockbox. But some agents will say, I didn't know there was a CBS code, and bluntly on the plano, it says CBS code required. And you're like, well, if you read the section. So yeah, thanks for that. But I would put a big old notice on the front door. just like, you know, if you've ever been to an open door listing or an offer, you know, where you just walk in and let yourself in, it's like, you are on camera, you are being listened to. And so I usually curse a little bit about how hard it was to get in the house as I'm walking through the house to say, you should really change your systems, you know, just saying. Okay, adverse information. I'm not liable if you lie. Okay, if you flat out lie, seller, how would I know? I don't live here with you. I've never owned this house. I don't know. I am not going to be in trouble unless I know something for fact that hasn't been disclosed as an agent. But I don't know if you tore down that wall, never put insulation back in the wall and put it back up there. I don't know that. So adverse information, I'm not liable. And then it goes over all the disclosures that may be applicable. The ones that are usually applicable in today's market in Maricopa County: lead-based paint built prior to
78.
70.
Yeah. Way to go. 78. HOA, almost every house. I love it when a buyer comes here from another state. They're like, I do not want an HOA and I only want to spend $450. And I'm like, welcome to HOA land. You know, HOA is very common. Please note, these disclosures are not filled out by the realtor. These disclosures are given to the seller, and a disclosure is filled out by the seller only. The moment you fill it out, you are liable, and you are liable for adverse information because you became the source. Insurance claims history. This one is not a form. This one is, I call my insurance company and I ask for an insurance claims history for the past 5 years. If there is no homeowner's insurance on a property, and yes, that does happen, the seller can write out that they had no insurance and they had nothing to issue as claims. Okay. Or if you have that executor situation and we cannot figure out, say the house has a very minimal mortgage and the mortgage company hasn't really put into effect the homeowner's insurance situation, and we can't figure out who homeowner's insurance is, right? Like they don't have an impound account. Well, then the executor could write, never lived in property, cannot figure out who the homeowner's insurance is. To the best of my knowledge, there's no claims, but they have to really try to figure it out first, right? But these are reasons it would be handwritten. Again, you don't write it, seller writes it. And then the other one that's on every single house that you take from this point on is the seller property disclosure statement. People love to say to sellers, not in Realty One Group, outside of Realty One Group, because I would die if one of our agents said this, inside a little bit. Oh, you know why you should list with me? I'm not going to make you do that extra disclosure junk. Buyer beware, buyer should investigate all day long. Okay, investor, you should list with me because you don't have to do the seller property disclosure statement. The seller property disclosure statement is a tool of the contract. A seller property disclosure statement is a fun mind teaser game. I mean, have you ever sat there and tried to think of your medical history? And then you're sitting there and you're, okay, maybe this is just a Mandy thing. I'm sorry. And I'm like, I have no freaking idea. I know certain things, but then I get the piece of paper I have to fill out from the doctor's office and it's so specific that all of a sudden I can remember more. That's what the disclosure statement's about, is to help our sellers remember more. Federal law states, and you will have to go to Google to find this federal law, but I can tell you what's out there. A seller is obligated to disclose all known material facts about a property. What is material, by the way, is defined by the buyer, but so I'll say all known facts about a property. The SPUDS is just a tool to help them with that. And can you waive federal law? Can a buyer and seller agree to waive federal law? No, parties can't write out. They try it all the time. It's really amusing. Try to write around the law. I'm like, that was really well stated. It's unenforceable. Isn't that exciting? So you can waive this all day long, but you're not waiving the seller's obligation of disclosure. And that's the most important tool to reduce risk management. Hey, Jill, just for you, I have a solar addendum. Okay. So that's really important, guys, that you go through this section. Oh no, what happened? Come back. Okay, we're here. Sorry. My screen just decided it did not like me for a moment. Oh no, we did this. All right. Recommendations. Be careful, broker. Be careful, agents. Only recommend who your office has experience with or who you have personal experience with. And anytime you're giving recommendations, I need you to write out, please note you can use whoever you would like to use on this transaction. These are just recommendations from people in my office that have had experience with these companies. We cannot guarantee what they will or will not do. Please contact them with any of your personal questions. Let me know who you would like to move forward with. Done. I'm not liable. The handyman yesterday was fabulous. The handyman today is not fabulous. Like, I can't control people's bad days. So Google's real. There is no rule of three. When I first started in real estate, we did not have Google like we have today, which is weird, right? Like, I don't remember a time without it. But we didn't. We had the phone book. And everyone had this rule of three. And I was like, so don't you just go to plumbing and just pick three? And they're like, yes, we do. Like, we have issues. Because we really should have been recommending nobody if we didn't have experience with it, right? Making a phone call and having someone make you feel good on the phone is not watching them change out your toilet. So we want to make sure that whoever you recommend, it's based on your office recommendations or it's based on experience with them. And you always tell them to research them for themselves. That includes when you represent a buyer on the home inspection side. Cool. Also, realtors who understand how to fix things in houses. That is not your job. You chose to be the realtor. Okay. Do not do it. Fix-it fairies are liability. I tell Jake all the time, you're not allowed to go with me anymore because if you do any more than cosmetic painting, I'm liable for you. And if that starts leaking because you touched it, because I told you not to touch it, I have to fix it. And I have a problem with it. So that all cuts out of your, earnings. Indemnification. I have agents ask all the time, why can't I send an open house from another brokerage? Well, because you can personally get sued and you can get us in a lot of trouble. The indemnification is if anybody's hurt on the property, I'm held harmless. You will release me from liability in regards to the property. But then I go let my home group agent sit one of my listings and someone gets hurt. Well, they're not covered under this agreement. This is just Realty One. So that agent can get sued. My home group can get sued. And now they can come back and say, we had an agency issue because the person sitting that open house didn't actually have the best interest of the seller in mind. So when you ask me these questions and get in the future, we have plenty of open houses. We have 681 active listings in MLS. And we have something in like every zip code of Maricopa County. Can I sit my friend's listing? Yeah, if your friend wants to come over, you can definitely sit their listing, but you're not protected if you sit someone else's listing and you don't have an indemnification clause. Any questions? All right, remedies. So important, so short, to the point. Everybody that does a real estate deal in Arizona with our basic forms have agreed to go through mediation and arbitration or small claims court prior to ever going to litigation, like actual suing. Cool. So next time someone says, well, I'm just going to sue you, you just smile. That is not an enforceable threat. Mediation is a requirement. It's called ADR, alternative dispute resolution. So if you want to be a little bit like bent, like I get a little sometimes, I'm like, that's so nice. I like to follow ADR rules. Well, what's ADR? Well, you should probably read section 9 of your listing agreement. That's not usually an issue with our clients, just to tell you. It's an issue between brokerages when we get in cross sales, and that would be considered section 7 of the purchase contract. Okay, here is your favorite part that you've been waiting for, Trina. So you can screenshot this one. This is where we're gonna write the great stuff. So in the event, no other real estate professional other than me, I'm just using myself, okay? Like this is just for an example. Mandy is utilized in the transaction. The total commission will be reduced to 4% of the sales price. Sorry, I need my nails done. I can't spell, can't type right now. Ta-da. There you go. And then the one for the buyer broker. In the event the seller signs a 6-month buyer broker agreement employing Mandy Neat as the buyer representative on their next purchase or with a 3% of sales compensation. Commission. So I'm gonna say prior to marketing, prior to placing this home on ARMLS, the total commission will be reduced to 5% of the sales price, adjusting the total growth to 2.5.
Excuse me, Mandy. Then it's supposed to be, the commission for buyer is for the other side, not for you.
I'm having them hire me as their buyer's agent.
Uh-huh.
So therefore, I'm going to talk about the terms that are going to be done in my buyer broker agreement representing them as a buyer's agent. So I'm saying, hey, seller, I'm going to reduce my commission, but I'm going to represent you on your next home purchase in a 6-month term.
Oh, okay.
Could you lose out here? Could they decide not to buy? Yeah, I mean, it's a risk, but do I want the listing? Yeah, 5% still more than 0.
Yes. Thanks.
Yeah, I one thing I want to teach you guys, like over anything, is you have to know your bottom line. I know what I'll leave my home for and give someone all of me above like answering my kids' calls for the next 60 days. I know how much that is for me as an actual dollar amount. I won't go below that dollar amount. But when I hear agents tell me that they were told that based on their brokerage policies, and that's not true here, okay, you guys can negotiate a lot of things, that their broker requires that they walk away from a listing if they won't sign at 6%. I'm kind of sick over it because I'm like, how are you supposed to make your livelihood and truly negotiate, since all commissions are negotiable, if you're stuck only offering X? So you have to know for you, Myrna, what am I willing to reduce for? What am I willing to do? And if what you're willing to do will make you bitter, then you were never willing to do it. I want to point that out too. So you have to get out of Percentageville and get into Dollar Billville and go, what am I willing to work for? I know for me, my minimum as Mandy Neat is I will work for $10,000 now. It used to be 5. For years it was 5, but also our average price in Surprise, Arizona was 175 to 250. Like I had no issue, right? Like I was just, yay. But now the average price out in Surprise, Arizona is $500,000 plus, right? So times have changed. So for $10,000, I'll do a lot of things for me. But then I'm going to kind of look at where I'm going to and what that market's yielding. And there's going to be a bottom line I won't go underneath. Does that make sense? So you have to be able to negotiate this based on who you are and what you want. Now, if you're on a mentee program, just let you know, the mentee program is based on 2.5% on your side. We don't base it on 3. So if you negotiate below that, you could be affected financially, but talk to your mentor. But these are 2 ways to do that. The other thing is we have something called the clear cooperation rule that states once you start advertising a property to the public, and this is a National Association of Realtors rule set that ARMLS has to follow. Once you start advertising to the public outside of Realty One Group, you must be on the MLS within 1 business day. So if your intent is while they're getting it ready to start advertising it, you can advertise it internally to Realty One Group agents, but you also need to add an additional form, and that's under your working documents on SkySlope. And that's a Realty One Group disclosure. But there are times that I put things in here like this too. A seller instructs listing agent to advertise ROC title as the preferred escrow company. Please note, I said escrow, I did not say title. And the reason is because with our partnership with Rock Title, they actually receive a 50% discount if we use them and advertise them in private remarks. So additional terms can be your friend when it comes to a listing agreement, but I will say, as you see here, you have to be detailed. If I just said in the event the seller signs a 6-month buyer broker agreement, well, I didn't ever discuss what that compensation was going to be on the buyer broker agreement, right? Like I need to discuss it, and that's why it's so detailed here. And so these are the caveats of discussion. These are their coupons. These are Mandy coupons. And it makes people feel warm. And it's true. I mean, even if you shop at Trader Joe's, you know you get excited when that cheese is on sale. Like, let's face it. So here's your sale. We're then going to go down, and on page 7, this is, and it's a bit on page 8, Arizona law. We have to always follow Arizona law. You can't write out the law. Notice this is only considered delivered if it's hand delivered, if it's emailed, if it's faxed, if it's couriered, or if it's mailed. So knowing that, I take 2 sets of documents. I take the set they're going to sign and I'm going to leave with. And I'm going to take a set that they're not going to sign, but they're going to know what they signed. Okay. And then as soon as I get home, I am scanning it all in and I'm emailing it to them because it needs to be sent. Where is it? Hand delivered, sent via fax, sent electronic mail. I was like, I knew it didn't say email. It says electronic mail. So I want to make sure I deliver it as fast as possible, because before I deliver the fully executed ER agreement, they can withdraw it. They can say, you know what, I liked you, but then we thought about it and we want to fire you. And I never delivered it. Therefore, they can. So you always want to make sure you have proof of delivery, but I always like people to know what they're signing. I don't like playing the game of I'm taking all the documents you're signing and you have no idea what you just signed, right? Like I want them to feel good. And I will tell you that some of my friends that are extremely experienced, I just haven't gone to the side yet of my mentality, will tell them I'm here to interview you to see if I want to take your listing, and I will be emailing you the listing agreement if I want to take this listing. And way to go, my friends that do that. Like, let me tell you, they have the numbers behind them to do that. I personally, no matter what my numbers have ever done, feel as though that's me. So I always have taken paper copies pre-printed. Also because I want to leave with the listing. I am a millennial and I am told millennials don't like paper. I love paper. Use paper. Take a binder, take tangible items. Just taking your computer is not enough, y'all. I will tell you, it will win 1 out of 10, but it is not enough. So that notice is really important, always about how delivery works. If you are taking an active adult community listing, which means our older baby boomers or our silent generation, or you need to ask them, don't assume they don't do technology, number 1. Don't go in with any assumptions. But if they tell you, I don't email, you need to ask yourself, do I have the capacity to drive to your house every time I need something signed? Okay. Do I have the capacity to sit down with you and explain this? Because if the answer is no, you're not the right agent for them. And you're doing an unfair service. So you have to take people 1 for 1. Okay. Days, copies, and counterparts. Everything can be done in counterpart, meaning the exact same document can be signed by you and can be signed by them. And you put it together, you have a counterpart. The only form we can never do that with is lead-based paint. And that's all agents sign an initial, buyer and seller signs an initials. And then owner, the owner is going to sign. Please fill this out as thoroughly as possible. The reason I'm telling you that is because the notice section also talks about what is listed here. This matters. And what if you guys took off on me? What if you went on an Alaskan cruise and you thought you'd have service, but then all of a sudden the northern lights came out and everyone's service went down and I can't reach your sellers? Well, the deal still has to move forward. If you're not available, someone in this office has to get up and take over, right? Now, it's not available in 5 minutes. You know, like usually tell us what's up. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure we can reach out to the seller at every point, okay? We don't do that. We don't reach out to your client without your permission. But if you disappear on me, I'm gonna have to reach out to your client eventually. 276 through 277, this is your local association. So this might say we serve, this might say Phoenix Association, or this might, which is also known as Phoenix Realtors, or this might say Scottsdale Realtors. So whatever local you're with, that's what goes here. And then what this is saying is, hey, I'm a proud realtor. I have rights to use these documents. These are copywritten documents. And I am proud to subscribe to the Code of Ethics, which is also in your package today that you can go back later. And I've highlighted some areas of the importance of how I have to treat you because I am proud to be a realtor. But we don't really cover that a whole bunch in the listing presentation, but just in case you want to hold me to what I subscribe to. And then you have them sign it. Then you sign it, they sign up here. A lot of agents turn in ER agreements, and this is what I call this residential right to sell. It's also called an exclusive right to sell. They forget to sign it. Houston, we have a problem. That is not a valid listing contract. So please, please sign it and deliver it to your clients. Do I have any questions?
You were talking earlier about variance. Is that something for commissions? Is that something we type in here as an additional term? Oh,
that was right here.
that's just what yours is. So even though you're doing it for just yourself as an individual dual agent, dual agency doesn't mean anybody in Realty One Group, right?
Right. Because
it does, but not in this because you had specified it, right?
Right. So limited representation does mean anybody within Realty One Group. A variable commission, you want to write it where it's all about just you, Lucinda, as the independent agent, because that would really stink if you still owe 2.5 and now you're only getting 1.5, Right. So that's why it says no other real estate professional other than Mandy Neat.
Okay.
So that could be a unrepresented buyer, or that could be just you as a dual agent.
So you're putting yes in the MLS because you have that term there. Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is writing in here contractual agreement to the 3% on the buyer broker, or you would have to have the buyer broker agreement in place for that to be contractual for 3% commission?
Right. They would, based on how I wrote this section here, Kimberly, they would have to sign that buyer broker agreement with me prior to me marketing the property.
Okay.
And if I know this going into the listing presentation, I have it already filled out. If I don't know this, I have a blank one and I'll handwrite it. Remember, if you handwrite any of this, everybody has an initial handwritten language, and that's you and the seller, bilateral agreement.
Is it possible to go and sit with somebody who's doing a listing agreement so we can hear the language and see how it happens, or is that kind of weird?
So Jill, I really love that question. And that's a misconception of our industry is this whole shadowing concept. If you can pair up with an agent, cool, and they invite you, awesome. I'm just gonna let you know the reality. When you're in the field and you're making a living selling houses, if I met someone right now at 11 o'clock, you wanna know what time I'm setting up my listing presentation for? 5:30 or 6. I'll say, hey, I can stop by today. I'm ready to go. I'm Johnny on the spot. And I want to remember you, right? Like the thought is, as an agent in the field, they want to help people. They want to remember people. They don't mind saying, hey, this is my partner. She's just with me today, to kind of see how things are going and to make sure that we both catch any of your needs, So there's a lot of ways to play that off in front of the consumer. But the reality of remembering to call that person is so hard. And if you're not Johnny on the spot, and I'm always 10 minutes early to my listings and I sit out there for 5 minutes, because if you're more than 5 minutes early to a listing presentation, it's just rude because they're still cleaning. Or maybe that's just the people I serve. You always hear them running in, they're gonna be here any minute. And I'm like, don't knock yet. I'm never gonna wait for you. You know what I mean? Like, as a practitioner, as a managing broker, I don't compete with you guys. So if I do anything, it's based on my own book of business and it's like at an off time anyways. And I have taken people to things before, but it's so hard because at the end of the day, You just got to jump in and do it, Jill. I was 21 on my first listing presentation. I was scared out of my mind. I've never forgotten it. My heart was in my stomach and I got it.
Yeah.
And I discounted my commission because I was like, so like, to find out, I took a 5% listing and worked my tail off. And I showed up at all the showings. I was so nervous. I showed up but guess what? They get all of me. You want to talk quantity and quality, you know, I got one and you got all of it. And it turns out when we went out to dinner to congratulate them, like, hey, congratulations, you sold your house, you're moving out of state, blah, 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 blah. They were like, you know, it's so funny. The guy before you wanted 7 and we were totally going to pay him 7 and you saved us like 2%. I was like, I could have charged 6. Dang, man, the things you learn after the fact. Jill, all you got to do is practice, 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 and walk in with confidence. The one tidbit I will give all of you, write out an ER agreement. Find someone in your life that is not a realtor. Not a realtor. Do not talk to your realtor friends for one of these examples, okay? And present the ER agreement to them and see if they would sign with you.
Good.
And the reason is because y'all think alike and you put yourselves in little categories and fear factors and reasonings, and none of that really matters. It's all about what you set with a non-realtor expectation. Anybody else? Going once?
If there's no questions on this, I do have a question on Sky Slope where you got this. Where's the checklist?
Awesome question.
Because I have no idea.
And now let's see here. If I'm in the file itself, so if I'm in Kermit's file, I've never tried it this way. Right now we're in Sky Slope Forms. I'm just gonna put checklist. Nope. All right, I'm just gonna go down and look at Realty One Group's library real fast and see what they have in here. They don't have it on this side. Okay, so you can't get it in the forms side. So what you would do is you would leave Kermit's.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have one right here. It's called document checklist.
Correct, but
Oh,
yeah, you're
okay.
right on, Trina. But it's not in the form side of Sky Slope. So we're gonna go to the apps and we're gonna go back to Sky Slope, where you would actually turn in your forms to the office. Because the form side is just your side, you know, like you just do your forms, you do you. But Trina, thank you so much. Yeah, the names of things always escape me. And you go to this button called Working Documents. In Working Documents, you're going to click Office Docs. And then you're only going to see your offices folder, okay? So for me, it's Paradise Valley. And then as Trina said, you're going to look here. There's 4 pages of documents like that coming soon addendum I told you about, clear cooperations right here. Our ABA form, our affiliated business agreement, is on every file. And then you're going to just kind of like go through them. They change the order all the time depending on what they're adding. And if you click this, the new document checklist, it's right here. And all the reds are required and all the greens are optional. And the blues are if they are applicable. Does that help, Lucinda?
Yes, thank you. I've been looking for it.
You know, and please always ask little things like that, because when I was a practitioner with Realty One Group and I was selling just fine and doing my thing, and I would spend hours doing little tasks or trying to find things, and all I had to do was ask. And when I became a manager and I learned like the whole back end, I was like, are you kidding me? I could have saved so much time. So ask away. Anybody else have a question for me? Well, if not, I've had a great morning with you all. You should all go practice your ER agreements, talk to humans, don't shy away, and take a listing.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Loved it.
Thanks so much. Excellent.
All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you for ice cream. Bye.
Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too.